Look, my dear listener, I have been giving consultations for over 30 years, and I am going to confess something to you now that will completely shake you up. There is a clinical secret that men never speak about concerning what really happens in their heads after the act. What I am going to reveal to you today will finally destroy this romantic myth that we have been sold about the afterwards. And no, it is neither what Hollywood makes you believe, nor what your best friend thinks. Neuroscience has clear answers that will forever change your view of male intimacy. But before we get to this revelation, which I promise you, I need a favor from you. Write me down in the comments below if you have ever wondered what on earth goes through a man's head right after sex. I bet you have. And I also bet that the answers you gave yourself are completely wrong. Let's start by dismantling a dangerous fantasy that we women often have. We believe that after intimacy, men lie there thinking about us as if we were the main character in a cheesy soap opera, wondering if we are the one or if they feel a deep spiritual connection. Please, that is our female projection at full volume. The male brain works completely differently in those post-coital moments, and understanding that is not meant to hurt you, but to help you make smarter decisions. Do you know what really happens in the male brain right after orgasm? His prolactin level shoots up to 5 times the normal value. Prolactin is the hormone that creates a feeling of deep satiety, similar to after a Christmas dinner when you just want to crash on the couch. That's why many men fall asleep or are mentally absent. It's nothing personal, it's pure biochemistry. But now it gets exciting, and this goes straight to the heart of what he's really thinking. While his body relaxes, his subconscious does something fascinating. It automatically begins to evaluate whether this experience created what I call emotional value markers. And this is exactly where many women make huge mistakes. I remember Patricia, a 48-year-old patient, who came into my practice completely devastated because her partner distanced himself after 6 months of relationship. After their first time together, she told me in tears, "Doctor, I thought after that night we would be closer. It was so beautiful, he said wonderful things to me, and since then he has been distant." I explained something to her that completely changed her view of relationships. Men do not process intimacy as a romantic love experience like we do. Their reptilian brain, that primitive part responsible for survival, makes an unconscious assessment. Does this woman represent a challenge to me, or have I already conquered her? Was this something valuable or simply too easily available? I do not justify this mentality. I am just explaining to you how it works so that you can move wisely within it. And here comes the first uncomfortable truth. If a man feels that he has won you too easily, his unconscious interest may drop. Not because you are less valuable, but because his evolutionary programming makes him value more what requires effort. It's unfair, it's primitive, but it's real, and denying it changes nothing. Before you think I'm telling you to play hard to get, stop. That's not the solution. The key is to understand that your worth does not depend on when you become intimate, but on how you position yourself emotionally before, during, and above all, after. What does that mean in practice? That after sex, you should show emotional completeness, not neediness. If you immediately seek validation, ask, "How was it for you?" cling, or project expectations about the future, you trigger an alarm in the primitive part of his brain that is interpreted as emotional dependency. I will tell you about Marisol, another patient who completely changed her love life when she applied what I explained to her. After intimacy, she did not lie there waiting for declarations of love, but got up, took a shower, and naturally went about her life. "It's strange, doctor," she told me weeks later. "Since I stopped seeking his validation, he has been much more loving and attentive. Why did it work? Because she showed something that the male brain deeply respects: emotional autonomy. When a woman does not change her emotional state after intimacy, does not appear clingy or needy, it generates respect. His subconscious thinks, "This woman does not need me to feel complete. She is here because she wants to be, not because she depends on me." But be careful. Do not confuse emotional autonomy with coldness. The difference is subtle but crucial. An autonomous woman can be loving, present, and tender, but not needy. She can enjoy the moment without clinging to it as if it were proof of her own worth. And now something that few women understand. Men also process intimate experiences emotionally, but with a delay and completely differently from us. While we immediately and gladly reflect verbally, they need time and space for emotions to mature within them. In the first hours after intimacy, their brain is literally in a physiological recovery mode. The dopamine level, which was extremely high during arousal, now drops rapidly. This often creates a short-term feeling of emptiness or distance. That does not mean he felt nothing. It only means that his nervous system is recalibrating. And here's a fascinating point that most don't know. About 12 to 24 hours after intimacy, the male brain actually begins to process the emotions and connections that arose. In this phase, he actually experiences the experience most deeply. That's why you often notice that he seems more loving or emotionally connected the next day. But for this emotional process to develop positively, you must plant the right seeds immediately after the experience. And those seeds are not declarations of love or gestures of neediness, but expressions of your own worth and inner fullness. And I'll give you a little cognitive exercise that can change your experience. Before you become intimate with someone, ask yourself honestly, do I want to sleep with this person because I truly desire him, or because I need validation, emotional closeness, or proof of my worth? If your answer contains unresolved needs, pause. Sex should never be a tool to fill emotional emptiness. I remember Carmen, 52, who came to therapy because all men pulled away from her after sex. During the sessions, we discovered that Carmen used sex as a way to force quick emotional closeness. Deep down, she did not feel interesting or valuable enough to keep a man's interest otherwise. Her pattern was quick sex plus emotional clinging equals the man's escape. I taught her something that changed her love life. Carmen, if you love out of neediness, you send neediness. If you love out of true desire and inner fullness, you send value. It took months for her to internalize it, but eventually she learned to delay intimacy until she was sure her motivation was genuine and not a desperate search for connection. Now let's go deeper into what really happens in the male mind in the hours afterward. Aside from physiological recovery, there is an unconscious evaluation taking place that determines whether this experience brings him closer to you or pushes him away. And that, my dear friend, depends more on your attitude than on your performance in bed. Men unconsciously assess three things after an intimate encounter. First, whether you maintain your essence after sex. If before you were independent, confident, and fulfilled, and afterward you become needy or different, his inner alarm bells start ringing. Second, whether you do not use sex as emotional currency, that means you don't expect that he now automatically owes you love, commitment, or a new dynamic. Third, whether you preserve your own emotional center. What does that mean? That your well-being, your happiness, and your self-worth do not depend on how he behaves after sex. If he falls asleep, fine. If he checks his phone, also fine. If he wants to continue, great. If not, don't take it personally. Neuroplasticity shows us that we can train our brain to respond differently in such situations. Each time you maintain your balance after intimacy, you strengthen the neural networks of autonomy and weaken those of emotional dependence. But now to an even deeper topic. Why can some men not forget you, even if they try, after being intimate with you? The answer lies in what I call the marker of extraordinariness. When a woman experiences intimacy while at the same time preserving her mystery, her autonomy, and her value, she creates an extremely strong emotional imprint in the male mind. How does that work? The male brain is programmed to store experiences vividly that connect physical pleasure with emotional challenge. If you don't behave like most women after sex, meaning you don't become predictable or clingy, but instead preserve that trace of mystery and independence, you become a positive anomaly for him. This anomaly leads in neuroscience to what we call enhanced memory consolidation. His brain classifies the experience with you as something special and wants to repeat it. This is not manipulation, but applied neuroscience for intelligent love. Rosa, one of my most successful patients in love, once told me, "Doctor, I learned that the key is not to show him after sex how much I liked it, but to remain the same fascinating woman he fell in love with, not someone who changes after sex." Rosa understood something profound. Emotional consistency is an aphrodisiac. But beware, I am not speaking here of manipulation or facade. What I mean is genuine emotional autonomy. The difference is crucial. A manipulative woman plays it cool, while an autonomous woman truly doesn't need anything because she is enough for herself. How do you develop this autonomy after intimacy? First, by strengthening your self-worth outside the bedroom. If your value depends on male validation, you will always react from a place of lack after sex. Second, by building a life so rich and interesting that no man, no matter how great he may be, can be your only source of happiness. Third, and this is crucial, learn to enjoy intimacy for the sake of pleasure, not as a means to force love, commitment, or validation. When you love out of pure desire and your own enjoyment, you radiate a completely different energy that men unconsciously perceive. A metaphor I often use in therapy. Imagine you are a gourmet restaurant. If after the meal you beg the guest to come back, offer him discounts, or keep calling him to ask if he liked it, what message do you send? That you doubt your own quality. But if after an extraordinary experience you simply remain the same high-quality place, full of self-confidence, the guest will return on his own. It is exactly the same with intimacy. If after sex you remain the same valuable, interesting and autonomous woman without seeking validation or changing your essence, he will return, not out of duty, but out of genuine desire. And now to a point that often causes confusion, the difference between emotional availability and neediness. Many women who don't want to appear needy after sex swing to the opposite extreme and become cold or distant. That's not the way either. The key lies in being present without clinging, available without seeming desperate. What does that look like in practice after lovemaking? You may be affectionate, touch him, talk to him, if it arises naturally, but not out of fear, not to confirm that everything between you is okay. Your affection should flow from inner abundance, not from fear of abandonment. There is a phrase I always repeat to my patients: the love you beg for is the love that loses its value. If your attitude after intimacy screams, "Please keep loving me," you send the wrong message. If, however, your attitude says, "It was beautiful to share this with you, and I remain a wonderful woman with or without you," you create respect and the desire for consistency. Male psychology has something fascinating. Men tend to value more that which they feel they could lose. I am not speaking of games, but of something deeper. If you show that you have a fulfilling life that doesn't depend on them, if you make it clear that you can be happy even without their presence, Their primitive brain interprets that as high value. But here comes an interesting paradox. Men also need to feel important to you, just not desperately needed. They need to sense that you choose them, not that you need them. This is a subtle but powerful difference. Choosing means freedom and inner strength. Needing means dependence and emotional emptiness. And I'm telling you about Alejandra, who completely changed her love life when she understood this difference. After years of failed relationships in which men withdrew after intimacy, she changed her approach. The next time she became intimate, she didn't cling to the moment or seek confirmation for the future. She simply enjoyed the experience, and then returned to her everyday life as normal. "It was incredible, doctor," she told me later. "For the first time, a man sought more closeness after sex instead of distancing himself. That's when I realized my desperate energy had been chasing them away before." Alejandra had discovered the power of true emotional autonomy. But what really happens in a man's mind during the first 24 hours after intimacy? His brain engages in something I call emotional archiving. It categorizes the experience. Was it just sex? Was it a special connection? Did it feel real or forced? Did the woman change afterward or remain the same? During this unconscious archiving process, every sign of neediness, every drastic change of personality, every desperate search for validation is stored as a warning signal. However, if you preserve your essence, your independence, and your personal value, it is categorized in his subconscious as a valuable, repeatable experience. This emotional archive does not run consciously, but it determines his future behavior toward you. That's why what you do in those critical hours after intimacy and how you behave is so crucial. I remember Monica, who came to my practice completely frustrated. Her relationships always started wonderfully, but after sex everything cooled down. When we examined her pattern after intimacy, we found that she immediately turned into a different person. From independent to clingy, from confident to insecure, from interesting to predictable. I gave her a simple but effective exercise. After lovemaking, ask yourself, am I still the woman he fell in love with, or have I turned into someone else? This question helped her preserve her authentic essence, even in moments of great vulnerability. And this is critical to understand. Men do not process intimacy the way we do. For many of them, sex can be highly intense and physical without immediately becoming emotional. That doesn't make them unfeeling, they just process emotions differently and at a different pace. In the first hours afterward, many men are in what I call integration mode. Their brain is processing the physical experience, their hormone levels recalibrate, and without realizing it, they are simultaneously evaluating the emotional quality of what just happened. If they notice dramatic changes in your behavior during this integration phase, if they feel that sex has changed you or that you suddenly have different expectations, their alarm system is activated, not consciously, but on an instinctive level. And that is exactly why it's so important to understand your value must not change after sex. If you were valuable before sex, then you remain just as valuable afterward. Sex should not turn you into someone who needs validation. It should simply be another expression of your fullness as a woman. Now, I'll say something that may sound controversial, but is deeply true. Men can become downright obsessed with a woman who continues to challenge them emotionally, even after intimacy. I'm not talking about playing games, but about remaining the complete, interesting woman you already were before he came into your life. Why does this happen? Because their brain is programmed to value what they cannot completely control. If after sex they feel they have won you, that there is no further intrigue, that you are predictable, their unconscious interest decreases. But if you preserve your mystery, your independence, and your own life, you remain unexplored territory to him, something to be conquered again and again. And this doesn't mean being cold or distant, but authentically autonomous. It means your happiness, your projects, your friends, and your dreams do not depend on him. When a man feels that you are complete even without him, but that you consciously choose him, then a powerful, lasting attraction is created. Dopamine, the hormone of pleasure and reward, is released more strongly with unpredictable rewards than with guaranteed ones. If after sex you become a guaranteed reward, always available, always needy, always seeking his validation, his dopamine level toward you decreases over time. But if you maintain a healthy degree of unpredictability, live your own life, keep your secrets, your projects, then his brain keeps categorizing you as a high-value reward. A concrete example, Sophia used to cancel all her plans after sex just to wait for an invitation from the man. Almost always, the men lost interest afterward. When she changed her behavior and simply returned to her normal life after sex, yoga, girlfriends, projects, men began to seek her company much more. "It's like magic, doctor," she told me. "Since I stopped cancelling my life for them, they want to be part of my life." Sophia had discovered a fundamental truth. Men value what they cannot easily control. Let's dive deeper into the neurological aspect. Why can men not forget some women after intimacy? Because during sexual experiences accompanied by respect, admiration, and intellectual challenge, a so-called multimodal memory trace is formed, extremely strong and lasting. And this trace is not created by good sex alone, but when sex is tied to complex emotions, respect for an autonomous woman, admiration for someone who maintains her value, and fascination with someone who remains a mystery, even after the deepest intimacy. That's why some women become unforgettable memories, while others fade easily. The difference is not only in technique or beauty, but in the ability to evoke these complex emotions. How do you create such emotions? By preserving your emotional independence even in moments of greatest vulnerability, by showing that not every man has access to your intimacy, by keeping your personal secret, parts of you that remain unexplored. The male brain is programmed to vividly remember women who present a valuable challenge, not hostile or exhausting, but fascinating and enriching, women who make men grow. If after sex you remain the same independent, fascinating, and unpredictable woman he originally fell in love with, you become the kind of memory he cannot shake off. His mind keeps returning to you, comparing other experiences with you and seeking that unique sensation again. But here is an important warning. Do not confuse value with complexity and autonomy with coldness. A valuable woman is warm but not needy, present but not clinging, loving but not dependent. A complicated woman, on the other hand, is dramatically, destructively unpredictable and emotionally draining. The line between excitingly challenging and toxically complicated is narrow, but clear. Healthy attraction comes from a rich, fulfilled life. Toxic complexity comes from unresolved inner deficiencies disguised as personality. In my years of clinical experience, I have observed men develop lasting obsessions for women who combine three elements: emotional authenticity, personal independence, and the ability to remain centered even in the deepest intimacy. These women do not play roles, they act from their inner abundance. An example, Carla, 45, a successful manager, attracted men but could not hold their interest after sex. We worked on what I call complete presence without dependence. She learned to be fully present during intimacy, truly enjoying the moment, but without letting it determine her personal self-worth or future mood. The result was extraordinary. Not only did she begin to hold men's interest long-term, but even ex-partners sought her out again. What had changed? Her energy. She no longer radiated neediness disguised as love, but genuine fullness, inviting sharing without clinging to permanence. This brings me to a crucial point that many women misunderstand. The difference between emotional availability and emotional neediness. Men sense this difference unconsciously, even if they cannot put it into words. Being emotionally available means being able to be vulnerable, tender and open, but from inner strength. Being emotionally needy means seeking in the other the validation, security or completeness that one has not found within oneself. After sex, this difference becomes enormous. If your behavior comes from emotional availability, you will be loving but centered, present but not anxious, tender but not desperate. If it comes from neediness, you will seek validation, fear rejection, and alter your essence to please. And men perceive this difference instinctively. Their subconscious tells them, is she sharing from fullness or begging from lack? And this perception decides whether they see you as a woman of high value or as an experience easily left behind. And here is a revelation that can completely change your perspective. Men do not flee from love. They flee from neediness disguised as love. They do not turn away from true intimacy. They turn away from emotional dependence pretending to be intimacy. When a woman loves from her own abundance, without hidden agendas to bind, conquer, or seek validation, a completely different experience arises in the male psyche. This experience is stored in his memory as something special, unique, something worth finding again and keeping. If a woman, on the other hand, uses sex as a strategy to force commitment, obligation, or self-validation, then no matter how technically good the physical experience is, emotionally it leaves a taste of manipulation that his subconscious rejects. I tell you about Esperanza, 53, divorced 3 times, who came to me convinced that all men were the same. As we examined her patterns, we discovered after every intimate experience she transformed, from independent to clinging, from confident to insecure, from interesting to predictable. I told her something that radically changed her love life. Esperanza, your value as a woman does not change because you had sex. If you were valuable before, you are valuable after. Sex should be an expression of your fullness, not a search for validation. Months later, she told me, "Doctor, for the first time in my life, I have a relationship where he seeks me even more after every encounter." I realized it was my desperation that drove men away, not my age or outer flaws. Esperanza had discovered the transformative power of true emotional autonomy. But let us go deeper. What creates that indelible trace in the male memory that ensures he cannot forget you? Even if he wants to, it is a specific combination of neurological and emotional factors. First, the experience must create positive cognitive dissonance. That means you break his expectations of how women behave after sex. If he expects neediness and you show fullness, if he expects drama and you radiate calm, if he expects change and you offer consistency, you create an anomaly his brain wants to process again and again. Second, it requires what is called high-quality intermittent reinforcement. This does not mean being inconsistent or confusing, but maintaining a healthy degree of mystery and unpredictability. Predictable in your quality as a person, but not in every reaction. Third, and most importantly, you must make him feel personal growth. Men hold on to women who help them become better versions of themselves, not those who need them to feel complete. Do you know why some exes never fully forget you? Because you made them feel valuable, without making them indispensable. That paradox is the best-kept secret of those women who leave indelible marks in the male psyche. When a man feels appreciated but not pressured, desired but not desperately needed, loved but not possessed, his brain categorizes that experience as an emotional treasure. Now, something that will forever change your view of male intimacy. Men also fall in love after sex, just in a completely different way than we do. While we women fall in love with the emotional connection that we project onto the act, they fall in love with the quality of the woman they perceive through her behavior after sex. If you show emotional stability afterwards, do not change your essence, preserve your value, have standards, and are not indiscriminate, their respect for you grows. And respect, my dear friend, is the fuel for lasting male love. If, on the other hand, you become needy after sex, change your personality or act as if he owes you something because you slept with him, then his respect decreases. Without respect, there is no sustainable love, only guilt, pity, or habit. A fascinating finding from neuroscience. When a man remembers a sexual experience that deeply marked him, the same brain areas are activated as with experiences of personal success or transcendence. He does not only remember physical pleasure, but the feeling of having experienced something extraordinary that elevated him as a person. How do you create this feeling of transcendence? Not through perfection on the outside, but through genuine emotional integrity. When a man feels that he is sleeping with a woman who respects herself, who has standards, who does not give herself easily but also does not refuse artificially, he experiences a sense of privilege and fulfillment that imprints his memory forever. I remember Isabel, 49, an architect, who came to me because men fell in love with her but lost interest after sex. In our sessions, we discovered Isabel had strong self-confidence professionally, but in love it was fragile. After sex, she constantly sought reassurance, asked if it was good, wanted assurances, worried when he was not as emotional as she expected. Her insecurity undermined what her strong personality had built. I told her, Isabel, in the office you do not need constant reassurance that you are a good architect. You know it. Apply this certainty to your womanhood as well. You do not need reassurance after sex because you know that you are valuable. The change was spectacular. When she stopped seeking reassurance and showed the same confidence as in her profession, men began to seek her even more after every encounter. But here is an even deeper point. Men unconsciously but systematically assess after sex whether you are a woman who respects herself or one who depends on their reassurance. This assessment is neither conscious nor malicious, but simply the way their evolutionary brain works. A man can be completely fascinated by you before sex, but if afterwards he feels that you have changed, that you have become needy, that sex has turned you into someone else, then his attraction begins to fade, without him exactly knowing why. That is why it is crucial to preserve your essence, even after intimacy. It is not about pretending to be cold, but about remaining authentically consistent. If you were independent before sex, stay that way afterwards. If you were confident before, keep that confidence. In the end, one truth remains that every woman should internalize. Your value is never defined by intimacy with a man, but by the relationship you maintain with yourself. The more anchored you are in your own inner stability, the more strongly you radiate attractiveness, not the superficial, short-lived kind, but the deep one that evokes respect, admiration, and love. Men instinctively sense whether a woman acts out of neediness or inner strength, and only the latter awakens their long-term devotion. So if you take anything away, let it be this. Stay the woman you were before intimacy, independent, valuable, interesting. Sex is not a test of your worth, but merely another expression of your fullness. Men forget many encounters, but they remember for a lifetime the women who showed them that true love does not arise from dependence but from freedom. And it is precisely this freedom, paired with authenticity and emotional consistency, that is the secret why some women remain indelibly in the heart and mind of a man.